So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to PSG of Mercer County. The Professional Service Group of Mercer County is a group that is here for you, anybody that is in any kind of career transition. And of course, happy Aloha Friday. So those of you visiting us for the first time, yes, I am wearing my Hawaiian shirt on purpose, my Aloha shirt on purpose. I like to celebrate Aloha Friday. And also, you may not be aware, today is International Translation Day. So happy International Translation Day. Pays tribute to people in the language professions and such. So for anyone in that area. And I thought it's very apropos for our guest today, Alex, because Alex speaks 5 languages. And certainly, at least among those languages, I'm sure he's very proficient at translating accordingly. So happy International Translation Day. Welcome to the Professional Service Group of Mercer County. We are here to provide resources, guidance, information, all to help you be more efficient and more effective in your own job search. So we don't find you jobs per se, but we help you be more efficient in job search on your own. And among that, we do have resources that can help you. Those resources do include, we have a LinkedIn group. So certainly as a job seeker, you should have a LinkedIn profile and make it robust with your professional interests, a summary that discusses you, things that really get our attention or the job search person's attention and hiring manager's attention. So they're also in LinkedIn called groups. They are digital gatherings, I guess, of like-minded people or people with like-minded interests. So ours is called PSG of Mercer County. And we have over 1,700 members. And so we do ask that you do consider joining our LinkedIn group. And now, when you join our group, go search for it, PSG of Mercer County. You'll see a join button, press that. You will immediately be put in pending status. And the reason why is we want to make sure people that join our LinkedIn group are only people that are job seekers. We're trying to keep the name collectors and the list collectors out. People that are just collecting names for their own benefit. So when you do join, you may be in pending status for a few days or a week until we get to the group and let you in. But it's all people that have been through our program before, so there's a good chance that if you contact anybody in our group, or if you post information and someone sees it and they're interested, it'll be a job seeker that will then look at it and be happy to respond. There are some groups that are out there of different interests. People may not be as responsive, but I think most job seekers understand the importance of job search, so you have a good chance to get a response. And be active, post any information you find helpful to others. Maybe you got a terrific job posting in your email that just doesn't apply to you at all, but you know it's probably terrific for someone. Copy it out of your email, paste it into our group so other people can see it. And LinkedIn will recognize that you're active posting discussions, and that can be helpful to you as well. Do that in other groups as well, that kind of activity. In addition, we do have our website. It is psgofmercercounty.org. PSG.mercercounty.org. It is not just a landing page or a few web pages. It's over 120 web pages of content. There's a lot of information that we do have for job search and job seekers. You'll see that there's a menu across the top. One is called Career Options. And once you get in there, you'll see that there are different features and functions that you can go search. You can learn about getting started in job search, or maybe going down other paths like working as a consultant, buying a franchise, starting a business. There's a lot in there. It's not the be-all or end-all of any of these topics, but it's kind of one-stop shopping, our website, for a lot of topics and ideas. And so for getting started, the career options page may be really perfect. Or getting restarted. Maybe you've been in a little bit of a lull and you need a little bit of a jump start, so that could be helpful as well. So in just a moment, I will turn over the podium and the microphone to our guest, Alex Freund. So as a reminder, what you do is leave your microphones on mute most of the time. That's in case there's any background noise or any problems like that. We just don't want that to come through and interrupt. If we hear anything, our administrators can turn that off as well, but we just want to save the interruption. We are recording the presentation. It will be on our YouTube channel. The link for our YouTube channel is the YouTube logo on every page of our website, so you can find it from there. And for asking questions, you have a couple of options. One is you can type in chat the word question, You can write whatever you want in chat, but that allows us to know that you have a question. And so you can do that. And then that means you want to ask a question. We'll unmute you and you can ask. Anyone here, of course, just raise your hand and Alex will take your question. We do ask, just as the library's policy, when you ask a question, just come up to the microphone and ask. That way the whole audio system hears it. Another option is you can type the word question and then type your question in it, and then we'll read it for you on your behalf. So that's what we'll do for Q&A. And let's see, so we are ready to get started. And PSG of Mercer County and me personally, we're pleased to welcome back Alex Freund. Known as the landing expert, Alex helps his clients improve their interview performance by removing the fear so they can feel confident during the process. For the last 16 years, Alex has helped more than 1,200 clients, ranging from managers to CEOs in a variety of industries. Alex is volunteering and active in several job search networking groups, where he is an occasional presenter. He teaches via workshops on interviewing, resumes, LinkedIn, value proposition, personal branding, and personal marketing. PSG of Mercer County is always very pleased to welcome the landing expert, Alex Freund.
Thank you so much. It's really a privilege to be here today. David gave me a choice. He said, Alex, you can come in person or you can do it hybrid from home. And I, by purpose, wanted to come in person today because I want to encourage to start coming again back to the library. I'm a veteran here. I just looked it up. This is my 27th presentation right here for this group. I was here before a number of other times. I taught classes here, various workshops. I had 60, 40, 80, 100 people here for this workshop. For me, this is home. So I'm so excited. I've been excited the whole week to be here today. So yeah, this is great. And I hope you will be excited about the topic. On the way here today, I asked myself the question, why this audience? And thank you very much for coming in. We have many people here. Who is this guy and why is he qualified to talk about this particular subject? Well, I don't know. I can assure you, expert I'm not. I love the topic. I love to talk about it. But so you better understand why I think I'm somewhat qualified to talk about it is because I was born in communist Romania. 13 years I lived there. I learned a lot from that regime, oppressive regime. At the age of 13, my family decided to move to Israel in the Middle East. I lived there 12 years, 6 years in a boarding school, 3 years serving mandatory army service, 3 years working in the hospitality field. Now, around the age of 25, 26, I decided to come to America. And I'm always saying I'm the happiest camper here. I love it here every day. So it gives you a little bit background about who I am and so forth. Another thing comes to my mind. I connect very well with international people. And this reminds me that years ago, my wife and myself, again, she has very similar background as I have. We did something that we called international dinner, international night. Typically after Christmas, the holidays, we invited between 6 to 10 couples to our house. But the criteria to be invited was this. Every couple has to be from a different country. We cannot invite people for representing the same country. If you are invited, you have to bring in a dish that represents your country. And this is enough for everybody. And you'll have to kind of talk for 3 to 5 minutes about your country in front of other people. And we did this for several years. I cannot tell you the joy and the fun we had really hearing people from Yugoslavia, from Peru and China and India and Netherlands and so forth talk about their country. It's a memorable, memorable evening. So again, I love it. Let's get into the subject. I decided to title this, sorry, but we found someone who's better fit. because many of you have heard this in past. I know I have. Very, very painful. You go for the interview. I keep in touch with my clients. So how did it go? Well, I said this and they asked me this. High level of enthusiasm. Oh, good luck. I hope you hear from them. They don't. And when you inquire what happened, we decided to go with someone who is better fit. So let's talk about it. What is the better fit, and is there anything you can learn about it and prevent it and do better the next time? Okay, so I wanted to make sure that we are on the same page. When I use the expression better fit in the title, it implies cultural fit, because it could be many other things. I don't need a job. No, you don't need a job. You need a good job with a good cultural fit. A bad job or a bad culture is worse than not having a job. I said this to so many people. I work with my clients. They're happy. They go for an interview. They're excited. Everything is fantastic. 2 weeks later, I talk to them. They're still excited. 2 months later, I talk to them. They raise some doubts. 4 months after that, they don't have a job, and all of a sudden now they're out looking for a job. Why? It was not a cultural fit. And by the way, I'm embarrassed to tell you, I had that situation. For 22 years or so, I worked for a company in New York City, Con Edison, the utility company. It wasn't a good fit for me. In that company, you don't use a 4-letter word at the beginning, middle, or end of the sentence. You're not a part of the crowd. And I don't use that language. I couldn't wait to get out of it. So anyhow, so the relationship with your boss will dictate whether this is a good culture fit or not. When I ask somebody, so how is it to work for Nike? When you answer, basically you express to me how your relationship with your boss is. Because if your boss is fantastic, oh, Nike is fantastic. If you don't get along with your boss, Nike is not such a great company. So the real question is, how can a candidate predict the boss and company culture before engaging? That is a big question. Can you predict it, and can you make decisions based on what you want? 20% of signs are visible, such as language. I talked to you about language, practices, attire, and office etiquette. Again, 20% of the signs you can see. The problem is that 80% of the signs are not visible. They are manifested via interaction with others, and they are the most difficult to identify. This is where we will spend the majority of our time today. Here I want to give you an example. During President Biden's recent visit to Israel, he wanted to thank the singing performer couple by shaking hands. But the woman, an Orthodox religious person, is not allowed to shake hands with a man. So look what happened. President Biden is trying to thank this couple, especially, the woman, and look at the picture on the right. She's just holding her hands, and this is very embarrassing. This is the President of the United States, and he was embarrassed. Somebody should have told him, if it's a religious person, it's a woman, she most likely is not allowed. She will not shake your hand. Just an example, a cultural difference in understanding. People's behavior are influenced by the local cultures. If you are looking for a job in your own region, there probably won't be any significant cultural barriers. If you're born in New Jersey, raised in New Jersey, looking for a job in New Jersey, probably there will not be very significant cultural differences because everybody behaves kind of the same. In the United States, many different cultures. For example, people in New Hampshire think and act differently from people in the Midwest. the Deep South, California, and New Jersey. And I want to share you my story. My wife and I and the kids later lived in upstate New York, Denver, Colorado, Dover, New Hampshire, Ithaca, New York, Morristown, New Jersey, Princeton, New Jersey, where we are now. We lived in various parts of the United States. I remember when I moved from Denver to New Hampshire, I became a department head in a local hospital, and 2 days after I joined them, I met with this lady called Jackie, and Jackie was a director of HR. And Jackie said to me, kind of, Alex, let me tell you a little bit about people in New Hampshire. There are two things they believe in. One, think small. Two, don't change my life. And I said, ha, 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 that's funny. Let me tell you, this was not funny, this was reality. People living in New Hampshire don't want to think big and don't want their life to be changed. That's the way it is, and that's the way you will like it. I studied modern American management. I came there, and oh my God, I turned their lives upside down. Because I changed a lot. I replaced a lady that was in that position as a department head for 33 years. So here I come with new modern American management, revolution. I'm changing the entire department. So it was difficult. Now, international cultures differ vastly. They should be gauged and compared with our own American culture. That's number one. And don't confuse cultural difference with personality difference. You may talk to a person in India who is, I don't know, egotistical. That doesn't mean that every person in India is egotistical. Absolutely not. So be aware that there is a difference. Cultural difference is one thing, personality difference is another thing. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. Okay, so to become able to understand and compare foreign cultures, one must overlay them on a different scale model. And here is a book, The Culture Map. By the way, here is a book, if you can see it. How did I come across this book? In our community here, once a year, there is a garage sale. Everybody brings out their junk to the street. So, my grandchildren and my son and family came over and we walked around with them, and we found two books that caught my eye. Both of them were on the topic of culture. Oh my God, yeah, I need to buy this. I paid $2 a book because there was a sign, and the lady said, no, it's 50 cents a book. You have two, so pay me only $1. So I got this book for 50 cents. And I want to tell you, I strongly suggest you read this book. The problem is, and I want to warn you, you start it, you cannot end it, because you cannot finish, because it just goes from one chapter to the other. It's amazing. But anyhow, so what we're going to do from here on, and by the way, I have two stops where I'm going to ask you questions. And at the end, we have plenty of time to talk about. But we are going to talk about communication, evaluation, leading, deciding, trusting. There are several topics that we will talk about. So the first topic is communication. In this case, it is international communication. I want to talk about the low context culture versus high context culture. So, give an example. In China, a bilingual consultant was hired to assist during a presentation, but would not speak until asked to. So here is the situation. This lady, Erin, the person that wrote the book, born and raised in Minneapolis, at the age of 25, started to get into international work. She started traveling all over the world. She is now married to a Frenchman living outside of Paris, and she's a professor at INSEAD. INSEAD is a world-renowned university, international studies, etc. So anyhow, she needed to make a presentation somewhere in China, and she hired a native person to assist her. They discussed it. Again, she's paying him, everything is great. So she goes to China to make this presentation, and she speaks and speaks and speaks. And they had a kind of a meeting before, you know, what he's supposed to talk and what she's going to talk about. Well, she is talking, and this Chinese individual sits there and just watching. At the end of the presentation, she approaches here and says, "Oh, Mr. Wang, what do you think about this?" And then he opened his book and he made a fantastic, fantastic presentation. At the end, they met. After the meeting was over, they met, and she asked him, "Why didn't you participate?" And he looks at her and says, "You never asked me to. When you pointed your finger at me and you said you want me to talk, I did." What can we learn from this? In the Chinese culture, they're not jumping in. When you are at the podium, when you are the person conducting the meeting, you are the boss. You talk, nobody's to interfere. Not so in the American culture, right? Yeah, but you see, you need to understand these differences. When he was asked to say something, oh my God, he was very good, but he needed the cue, come in and tell me your opinion. Otherwise, he would not jump in. A French person working in America completely misunderstood her performance evaluation. In France, positive feedback is given subtly, whereas negative feedback is given strongly and directly. In the United States, the opposite. Positive feedback is given directly and negative feedback is softened. So here is a detail behind this. So this Erin, the author of this book, she knew this lady, that she's a French lady. And she arranged for her to have an interview in Detroit, and she was hired for an automotive company in Detroit. 3 months later, Erin calls this lady and said, "Oh, by the way, how is it going?" "Oh, it's great. I love it here. This is wonderful. Actually, I just had my 3 months evaluation, and it's great. I love it. Everything is wonderful." Okay, she said, "I'm so happy it worked out for you." Now she picks up the phone and she calls the manager in Detroit that hired her. "Oh, so how is it working out for her?" "Well, we like her. She's very nice, but she is not precise. And you know, her job is in accounting where you really need to be very detail oriented. Every so often she is not accurate with the information that's important. And her projects sometimes come in late. We really want her to deliver it on time, and she's late very often. I don't know if we will keep her on our staff." So Erin said, "Now wait a second, I just talked to her and she is so happy and everything is fantastic." The manager in Detroit says, "I don't know if we are going to keep her." So what's going on? Read what I just have on my slide. In France, positive feedback is given subtly, whereas negative feedback is given strongly and directly. The American management didn't start hammering her, "You are late, you're not precise, the project don't come in on time." She understood that. Well, if you didn't tell me that everything is great here. In America, and I've done many evaluation of my subordinates, typically we say, "John, let me give you 3 things where I feel you're very strong and we appreciate your contribution, but there are 2 areas that I want you to continue developing." That's how we do it in America. In France, it's the opposite. As soon as you have an evaluation, they hit you, they hammer you. And the person in Detroit didn't jump on her and tell her what her deficiency is. So she said, "Oh, life is good here." Context is the common denomination when comparing international communication. In a low context country, such as the United States, communication is precise, simple, and clear. In a high context country, such as China, Indonesia, Japan, or South Korea, communication has nuances wherein messages are usually implied. And I want to show you an example, and you will understand what I'm saying. Again, remember, United States is a low context. Communication is simple, straightforward, precise. So, as an example, there are two people here. To the right, there is Miss Johnson. And she is talking to one of her employees, Mr. Wang, and she says, "It looks like some of us are going to have to be here on Sunday to host our client visit." Mr. Wang said, "I see. Ms. Johnson, can you join us on Sunday?" Mr. Wang, "Yes, I think so." Ms. Johnson, "That would be a great help." Mr. Wang, "Yes, Sunday is an important day." Ms. Johnson, "In what way?" Mr. Wang, "It's my daughter's birthday." Ms. Johnson, "Oh, how nice. I hope you all enjoy it." Mr. Wang, "Thank you. I appreciate your understanding." Now, what do you think? Did Mr. Wang join the team on Sunday? I want you guys to wait. How many people think that Mr. Wang joined on Sunday? Okay, one person of many people here. David, can you count kind of how many people raised their hand on your screen?
As long as they turn their cameras on.
That would be great.
We'll put that in chat. They offer them, they can put it in chat.
Okay, let's see let's see how the response is.
If you want to put in chat, if you think that she did or didn't. And we'll give it a count that way. So there's a no, another no, another no. Did not join 4, 5.
Yeah, that's the answer. I hate to disappoint you. The answer is no. It didn't show up. Again, very subtle communication. A person from a low context culture might perceive a high context culture as confusing, secretive, lacking transparency, and ineffective. If you are the other end of the spectrum, you might judge the other person's communication as being blunt and inappropriate. You see how communication for different parts of the world mean different things. Any questions? I want to take 1 or 2 questions so we can move on. Any questions about what we discussed so far? David, if there are any questions, please read them off to me.
Well, folks, you can put your questions in chat if you'd like. You're here to step up to the microphone. Press the button on top, make sure it's turned on.
David, Alex, can you say more about high context versus low context as a definition?
Absolutely. Low context is in the American culture, we speak very directly. We don't kind of, I'm sure you know from your experience that you talk with people from the Far East, Indonesia, Japan, China, and so forth. People said that they deliver a project on a certain date and the date passes and it's not there. You are an American, you said Tuesday, the 21st, you expect it to deliver. I mean, how simple can it be? Very straight, very direct. While the other person, well, if I'm a few days later, it's okay. It's again, totally miscommunication. Okay? Let's move on. We have other stops to ask questions. Persuasion in business. I want to talk about application first versus principle first. Under the application first method, facts are laid out first and theory and sources are provided later. such as in United States, Australia, and Canada. Under the principle first method, theory precedes application, such as France, Germany, Italy. And I'll give you an example. In Germany, for example, an American presenter was prevented from delivering a smooth presentation because of endless participants' interruptions and questions about the sources, peer review, who approved it, the presentation, the theory supporting the evidence. Again, this American went to Germany to make a presentation, and the audience, the high-level executives in Germany, would not allow the individual to move to the second slide until all the details, all the theory, all these questions are answered. Very, very frustrating for an American, that American comes in with slides and goes through it and so forth. Another thing, in Chinese culture, employees never confront their leader. Disagreements are resolved among equals. You remember in the first example, when this gentleman was asked to participate in this presentation, he wouldn't say anything until asked. Again, in the Chinese culture, they're very, very trained and disciplined, and that's how they behave. You never confront your leader. I also read about an experiment. Members of a group of Americans and Japanese were asked to take a picture of the person. Again, they were given a camera. Go and take a picture of a person. The Americans took a headshot, as you can see on the right. The Japanese took a picture in which the individual was a part of the background. This reflects their thinking. In America, if you take a picture of a person, you take a headshot. I mean, that's how I perceive it. But in some other cultures, you are a part of the whole. You are not individual. You're a part of the whole, the background, and so forth. Very interesting point. I'm sure from here on, when you look at the picture, you'll remember this. Now, cheese means different things in different cultures. And I took this, by the way, from LinkedIn. In America, I said, John, I want to take a picture of you. Probably the individual will smile. Look at the pictures on the left. Look at the picture on the right. They don't smile. Again, I took this from LinkedIn. It's very common. Pay attention to that. Let's talk about leadership and hierarchy. And again, we want to differentiate between egalitarian leadership versus hierarchical leadership. First, egalitarian leadership. Narrow distance between the boss and others. The boss is a facilitator among equals in a flat organization such as Denmark, Israel, and Sweden. Again, I told you I lived in Israel. Let me give you an example. In America, if you ever have a chance to address the President of the United States, what do you say? Hey, Joe, I have a question from you. No, you say, Mr. President, I have a question, right? I lived in Israel. I can tell you, in a formal setting, perhaps you would say, Mr. President, but typically, you remember Bibi Netanyahu? Bibi, what do you think? It's not Mr. President. It's very common. It's nothing to it. Currently, the president in Israel is Yair Lapid. They call him Yair. No, Mr. Lapid is very, very common. Again, I live there. I can attest to that. This is so true. Now, let's talk about hierarchical leadership. There is a wide distance between the boss and others. The boss leads from front, status is important, the organizational chart is multi-layered in silos, and communication follows hierarchical lines. This is in India, Japan, Nigeria, and South Korea. That's the way it is there. Let's talk about how people make decisions. Consensual versus top-down. Let's talk about consensual decision-making. Decisions made in groups with unanimous agreement, such as Japan and Netherlands and Sweden. In this country, the groups get together and they work it out until the team is on the same page. Decision in the top-down decision-making is made by individuals, typically the boss, such as China, India, Russia, yes. The United States is in the middle, which with a combination of the high value reached by both egalitarian and top-down decision process. Once the boss decides, the troops come to a consensus. But again, in some situations, the group is always together and making decisions and agreeing. In some other parts of the country, you are told what to do, Russia and several others, and you better follow. Okay, here's my next stop, second stop. Any questions? I know I gave you a lot of new information. This needs to kind of sink in. Oh, great, we have a question. Thank you.
The microphone on?
I think it's off.
A little green light.
Yep, okay. So when you were talking about the egalitarian versus hierarchical leadership, you didn't actually define the United States on that spectrum.
United States is kind of in the middle.
I figured that, but I just wanted to check.
Yeah.
Because I'm from Australia, and I would say that on most cultural spectra, we are similar to the United States, but we are definitely, I think, more towards the egalitarian and consensual structure than here. So anyway, I was just interested. Thank you.
It's very important at work, and again, we try to talk here about work situation. What happens if you are again, I know a particular case, the individual is from Germany, reporting to someone who is Chinese. Both of them are great, but oh my God, this looks this way and this looks this way. That's not that one or the other is right or wrong, but that's reality. How do you want these two people to kind of agree? Because they look at things in a very different way. Okay, you have a question. Thank you.
Hi, I'm in IT, and this sounds very much like Agile versus Waterfall. Are you familiar with those terms?
I am, but please don't ask me any further question about it because I will prove you in my ignorance. But I know there are, Agile, I think, is a kind of quick adjustment to the current need, and Waterfall is a systematic approach.
Yeah. And the Agile is more, you come to a consensus, it's the decisions are from the group where you were saying that it's not really top down as the terms you used.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. I'm so glad I came here today. I learned something from you today. Thank you. Okay. Any other question? David, anything through the chat?
There's nothing in the chat right now. Of course, folks, if you have a question and you are online, there's Gary has a question. So Gary, if you just unmute yourself real quick and ask your question.
Hi, Alex.
Hey, Gavin.
In conjunction with what you're talking about, I'd just like to share an example of what I experienced in the zone of difference in culture. I worked for a British company. It was a pharmaceutical company, and there was a very, very severe quality problem with a major drug. In order to solve the problem, we would have had to take the risk of talking with the Food and Drug Administration and disclosing it and telling them how we're going to solve the problem, the risk being that they would stop us from production and selling the product. Because of the risk, what I found was people didn't want to talk about what needed to be done as the real solution. And what people were evaluating you on was how polite and how articulate you were in describing the problem, not in tackling the problem and taking the risk of change to solve it. This is a very concise, I could go on about this for about an hour, but it seemed to tie back to me of the nature of British culture, which is to be very polite, not to be overbearing, and to kind of fit in, if you will, in the comfort zone of a consistency with a culture. It was a very, very noticeable difference from what I experienced in American companies, where you talk openly about a problem and you do things immediately to tackle it, including taking a risk of change.
Gary, thank you so much for sharing this. This is such a good example. Again, if you recall earlier, one of my slides said, the objective of my presentation today is attempting to open your eyes during the interview. Are there any cultural differences there? That because if they are very, very different, you know, you want the job, so you agree initially to take the job, but oh my God, down the road, you know what's coming your way. And again, all I wanted just to open people's eyes, cultural differences is a big deal, especially if you end up reporting to an individual that they look left and you look right, you'll never agree to anything. Thanks so much, Gary. Okay, let's move on. Trust building, task-based versus relationship-based. Task-based trust is built on business-related activities. Relationships are built and dropped based on circumstances such as in the United States, Denmark, Germany, and the Netherlands. And I want to share here with you something. For 15 years, I worked for Honeywell in Morristown, New Jersey. My happiest 15 years of employment. It was just unbelievable, great. I started at a lower level, I was promoted, I was given a lot of responsibility. At one point, I remember I had a lot of authority. I could commit Honeywell to $250,000. I can sign a check and nobody will question me. If it was a little over $250,000, I had to go to my boss who had $1 million authority. His boss's boss, my boss's boss, could sign a check for $5 million. Anything above it, it has to go to the CEO. I had a lot of power. I had a lot of decision-making power. And let me share with you, I had so many friends as long as I was with Honeywell. My biggest deception was the moment I told them I left on my own. The moment I left Honeywell, my friends evaporated, disappeared, vanished. Never heard from them. Before that, they emailed me. We had lunch together. We went to restaurants. We went to bars. I mean, we went to each other's homes. We involved our family and children. I mean, friendship was evidenced by our behavior. Until I was a director, corporate director of this big company, and I could make big decisions. The moment I was no longer there, the friendship disappeared. So again, trust was based and relationship was based on, can you help me? And the moment you're not in the power to help me, Alex, I don't need you anymore. And they dropped me like a hot potato. Relationship-based trust is built by sharing meals and drinks. It's slow developing. Others, trusted opinion counts, such as in Brazil, China, India, Saudi Arabia, and Thailand. So the story goes in this book that I read that an American company purchased an Indian company. So the leadership of the American company is moving to India to have their first integration meeting. And the first day it doesn't go very well. I mean, remember, the Americans bought the Indian company, but the American leadership meeting with the Indian company leadership just doesn't go very well. Totally unexpected. So the American people went to somebody, a local, a native person, asking, what's happening? I mean, we had this meeting and, we just can't get together. And the answer was, they don't trust you. Wow, what do you mean they don't trust us? We bought them. What do you mean they don't trust us? They don't trust you. Oh, what do I need to do so they trust us? He said, you need to take them out for dinner, have a couple of drinks, talk about grandchildren, talk about mowing, talk about visits, parks, hiking, anything but work. Talk about family and whatever. He said, oh, thank you. So the following night, the Americans decided to take out the Indians to a local restaurant, and they had drinks and they had food and they talked until very late at night. Next day, they had a meeting in the office. It was day and night. All of a sudden, things started moving and okay. So again, in the first time you come from America and they build a wall here, you don't come in. But the moment you demolish that wall, because we go out, we have a meal together, we talk about family, not business. Now that wall was demolished, now the relationship goes on. In the United States, business and friendships are kept separate. In Brazil and China, they are interrelated. Europeans see Americans as very politically correct, but at the same time inauthentic. Yeah, absolutely. This is so. Friendship is a kind of, let me ask you guys, you don't have to answer that. How often are you invited inside the house of your neighbor? In America, this is not very often done. I have a friend who was from New Jersey and moved to California. I stayed at his house, I visited him, and he said, Alex, let me tell you about people here in Los Angeles. On the street, they are wonderful, nice, hi, how are you? And they wave and all this. But the relationship stops there. Nothing beyond that. How are you? But the how are you is very warm and trying to be kind of real and genuine, but it stops there. He said, I've been here for 5 years, never ever was I asked to come even to the garden to cross our common fence, never. Oh, here's an interesting story. In the diamond business, there are no written and signed contracts. Business is based on a handshake and saying, Mazel and Bracha, meaning luck and blessing. Now, remember what we are talking about. Trust building, okay? So now, a family member for third generation was on 47th Street in Manhattan, and those of you that know Manhattan, 47th Street is a diamond district, okay? So he told me this, he told me years ago, in the diamond business, there are no contracts. Now, it doesn't make sense to you. In America, you have a contractor working for $180, you need to sign a contract before he steps into the house, right? In the diamond business, we are talking many, many, many thousands of dollars. You know, a wholesaler buys thousands of dollars. And he said, there are no written contracts. So when I prepared this presentation, I called him again. And I said, you remember years ago you told me this? I'm going to make a presentation about this. Can you give me a little details? I don't want to say the wrong thing. I said, Alex, that's true. He said, here's what it is. When I meet with a wholesaler, we are getting together, we are reviewing the diamond, we decide on the price, we write it down on the paper, we put it on the side. We go to the next one, we go to the next one. So these are all those that I want to buy, And there is a list, which ones, and the total price. At the end, they shake hands and they say, they speak Yiddish, so they say Mazel und Woche, which means luck and blessing. And they shake hands. By shaking hands, that is it. You cannot change, that is it. Thousands of dollars. Now, I asked him, how can this happen? He said, look, people in this business are not coming in like a waitress, going working for 3 months and leaving. I'm third generation in this. My family has a reputation. If somebody says this guy is not reputable and he's not honest, you might as well close shop. So your name, the trust that they have in you is everything. You don't need a paper, you don't need lawyers. So I said, okay, that's interesting, but can there be a dispute? I understood this and you understood this. He said, absolutely. So there is like an international court or whatever of arbitrators. You know, if there is a dispute, you said A, you thought I said B, so you go to this arbitration and yes, the judge or the arbitrator will make a final decision, but no contract. Interesting. Again, we're talking about trust. Now, how people disagree, confrontational versus non-confrontational. The confrontational, open confrontation is appropriate and will not ruin a relationship, such as in France, Germany, Israel, and Russia. Yes, I'm telling you, I lived in Israel, and in Israel, it's not a big deal in front of everybody to confront somebody with something that's unpleasant. Try doing that in America. That would be the last time that you see the person. A story that I read in this book is this. This lady, Erin, again, she lives now in France, and she said she was invited with her husband to somebody else's house. There were several couples there, and the house is situated bordering a golf course. So, you know, they have food, they have drinks. The owner of the house says, twice a year we have a golf tournament here. And oh my God, we hate it because the town is full of cars and, you know, we are not used to this. We hate it. We hate those tournaments. So one of the attendees looked at the hostess in this case, and said, well, you don't like this because you are egotistical. So Aaron, the author, who is from Minneapolis, of course, said, oh my God, the relationship is over here. Interestingly enough, no, because in France, to say something like this is somewhat acceptable. I have a hard time with it, personally, but yes, this is not. So in some culture in America, if you confront somebody in public, oh my God, they will never forgive you. But in some cultures, it is done. Non-confrontational, open confrontation is inappropriate and breaks groups' harmony or negatively affects relationship, such as in Indonesia, Japan, and Thailand. Don't do this. Don't make a public confrontation in those countries because you'll get chopped liver. Again, different approach. Disagreements may have emotional expressive components. And here's a story. In Arabic countries, showing emotion is a part of the show. For instance, by providing a driving direction for someone. So here's the story. Erin, the author of this book, said she was invited to either United Arab Emirates or to Dubai, somewhere in that part of the world. And she worked, and over the weekend, she rented a place outside of the city to relax over the weekend. And she mentioned this to one of the participants, and the participant said, oh, you know, I know that area, I'll be happy to drive you there. So Aaron said, oh, thank you, that is great. So they're getting the car, they're getting out of town, and after 20 minutes, the driver opens a window and she's talking in Arabic, which Aaron doesn't speak. Talk to the person something. And he replies, and then she answers. And they speak louder and they raise voices. And at one point, the driver gets out of the car, walks straight to that person, and she couldn't understand. She could just hear the voices elevated. And you can see on the body language a kind of action. She didn't know what to think. She said, oh my God, next thing, they were going to fist fight him. So the driver comes back to the car and Aaron says, what happened? She said, nothing. I just asked for driving direction. You know, I can see this so very well. I lived in Israel. And some people speak Arabic there. And the drama, the voice, the escalation of your voice, moving your hands, and you know, this is a part of the drama, this is a part of the culture. They don't necessarily mean bad things, but that's a part of communication. Okay, and in conclusion, each of us sees the world through our cultures, and it is obvious yet difficult to comprehend because people in other parts of the world behave differently from us and from another. We need to understand that. So here is I will leave up a little bit my contact information if you want to connect with me, but I'm here now to answer to your questions. Either those people that are here, and thank you for coming in, and those people are at home. Thank you.
Hi, Alex. It's good to see you in person. It's been a long time.
Each other for a long time.
Yes. A lot of the things that you've talked about seem to be long-term relationship type issues. When you're going through the interview process, you only have a short amount of time. Can you give us some tips, some hints as to what we can do beforehand in preparation for the interview, taking into consideration some of the things that you've said, because we only have that small window. And if we handle it wrong in the interview, we don't get the offer.
Yeah, okay, stay there. I want to role play with you a little bit, but first of all, yes, there is some preparation you can do before the interview. If you know you're American, and you know that you are from New Jersey, and you're going to be interviewed by someone in New Hampshire, where I lived. And remember what I was told, think small and don't change my life. Don't come with your grandiose ideas and put it up on the table. That's not necessarily what they need. Be very careful. All I want to open people's eyes that this might be the situation. Now, during the interview, you need to kind of constantly get feedback. Perhaps they do want you because you are from this region, which we think grandiose things and everything is possible. Perhaps they want it. So you need to gauge. All I want you to kind of, the light should go on. Oh, he's from New Hampshire. He is thinking differently than we do. That's my point. But do me a favor. I want to demonstrate, and I don't know how much people, can you do me a favor? Can you come up here in front of the camera? Sorry, I want to look at the camera so people see. Can you step behind the camera?
Behind the camera.
But don't move it. Okay, just like that. No, just like that. Okay, so look at me and ask me. No, look at me right now, not at the camera. Look at me and ask me, Alex, what did you have for breakfast?
Alex, what did you have for breakfast?
Did you see? I did not say a word. I just rotated my eyes. How do you interpret my reaction?
It could be your thinking. It could be a reaction to an inappropriate question. It's why does that person care what I had for breakfast?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Also, let me take it one step further. Is waiting in the back. Let me one step further. What a stupid question I'm asking. Why is he asking me this question? You see, I did not say one word, just being me rotating my eyes, I communicate with you. I don't like what you said. What a stupid question. Why are you asking me right now? Okay, so body language communication. Please ask me the same question one more time.
Alex, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, for breakfast this morning, okay, I did not say a word. How do you interpret me? It's called shifty eye. How do you interpret that?
Again, not sure why this person's asking the question, and I'm speaking for you. I'm trying to figure out why this person is asking that question now.
That's absolutely true, but I want to take it one step further. This person is not real. He's lying. If people are doing this, it's called shifty eye. Don't believe them. They're lying. They're not telling you the truth. Okay. Ask me one more time, and that's it. One more time, the same question.
Alex, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, for breakfast. How do you interpret the reaction?
Typically, when people are looking up, they're trying to remember.
Right.
They're searching their memory.
Gee, it was so long ago, I just don't remember. So I just wanted to show you 3 examples of body language communication. This happens all the time during the interview. I do this daily, and I want to tell you, I work with my clients and I am asking them the question. So tell me about yourself, or any question. The first thing, right now, you are looking at me. But when I ask you, tell me about yourself, the first thing you would do, your eye moves away from me. That tells me very clearly, you're not confident, you don't know how to answer, you're not comfortable with our relationship. And it goes on and on and on.
Now, that also gets into the whole nonverbal communication.
Right.
I look at it as, and I'm doing it to you right now, my mind is thinking, and I'm trying to eliminate a visual distraction.
That's correct, but that's at your end. How about the end of the interviewer? If you ask me a question and I answer by looking there, I look there because this wall is not moving. If I'm looking at you, I need to interpret any facial change, whether you like it, you don't like it, what's going on. That's the reason. I'm telling you, this is very, very hard. I do this every day with my people. I say, make an attempt, and it's very hard. Make an attempt to keep your eye. Good communication is when you look at me and I look at you. And the example I always give is this. If you happen to watch evening news on your television, how often the person reading the evening news is looking elsewhere? Well, today in Florida, there will be a storm. Probably that's the last time you open the channel. You want the news person who is reading from a teleprompter to look at you because you are the audience. Okay. Is there any? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, you had a question?
Alex? No. Alex, it's more of an observation, but
Yeah.
back in my history, I was with a company that was very participatory and kind of consensus building and decision making. I mean, I didn't know that at the time, but if that was my culture. I got laid off and ended up interviewing with another company. Now, the dynamic was weird because the hiring manager was building a new organization within a big company. And he came from the same sort of participatory management style. So when we interviewed several times, and we hit it off, and we were in sync throughout the whole process. Then I interviewed with his boss, who happened to be the big company of the new company, was very hierarchical. And the boss was kind of grumpy. You know, that was my impression, that he just wasn't friendly at all. He very straight, almost thought he was military, direct. But I got fired. And I mean, I didn't get the second line mad, but you know, it was very fact-based, very kind of transactional.
Yeah.
So, okay, time marches on. 6 months later, I'm on an assignment with another peer, and we're working together far away from any management. And the peer and I are kind of, we're very friendly, we go out for drinks and everything, so it was a good relationship, but he was very used to the big company culture. One time he took me aside and he said, you have to understand about this firm. It's engineering based, and its history is engineering, and everyone is direct, it's hierarchical, you don't cross the lines. And until he explained that to me, I was really kind of unaware of that. So, you know, in the very beginning, you talked about, well, how do you sense what kind of organization you're interviewing for? And for me, it was kind of false, because the hiring manager was a relationship guy, but the organization was very transactional, hierarchical. So in the end, I kind of had to shape shift and moved into a different organization and fit myself to what I was used to, or what they wanted. Whereas the manager who hired me lasted about 9 months, and then he decided to move on. I think it was mutual agreement. They decided to separate.
Thank you so much, Bill, for this, because this puts it all together. This is all together. You want to, during the interview and before that, if you can, try to identify what is a culture there and would you fit in. I can tell you that I worked 15 years for Honeywell, and I'm honestly telling you, in 15 years, I had probably 5 days that I was not a happy camper. The rest, I was very happy. If you guys remember, at one time, General Electric wanted to buy Honeywell. That was a day that I said goodbye, and I left on my own, because I'm not going to work for a company with a culture like General Electric. That's a true story. It was my choice. It was a great move. Anyhow, thank you so much.
There are still some questions.
Oh, okay.
Charlie R. left a comment. Yeah, so unmute yourself, please, Charlie, and then we'll have another question after that.
My pleasure.
So Charlie, we don't hear you through, your microphone looks on, but we don't hear you. I'm not sure why. Maybe you have to talk much louder. Sorry, not sure why it's not working. If you want to put your comment or question in chat, we'll address that in just a moment. And oops, let me get my phone back on. Our good friend Paul Sakala has a question.
Oh, great.
You know Paul.
Nice of you to be here today.
What are some specific questions we can ask on an interview to help get at these cultural differences?
Well, you know, Paul, that's an outstanding question. I think it behooves you to raise your radar and antenna and watch. Because if you ask, oh, can you tell me about the culture in your company? I will not put money on this, that they will tell you exactly what's going on. I don't think so. Let's say they are like the GE mentality. You remember Jack Welch? Every year we will let go 10% of the people that are not performing well. Do you think they will tell you upfront that? No. So I don't know what are the right questions to ask to get a good answer. I just don't have faith that they will tell you the truth. I don't know if I cannot hear Paul talking or answering.
No, that was helpful. Thank you.
Oh, there it is. Good.
Yeah. Talking?
He said it was good information.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? I don't want to keep you guys too long here.
Okay.
David, any other questions? If not,
No,
Alex, this is Gary. I have a comment.
yeah.
And this is just based on my own experience. During the course of my career, I worked for a lot of different companies, and everything worked out in most cases very well, especially if I was joining a company where I had former colleagues that worked there, that I had an opportunity to speak to find out what's what in the company and how do people work together, and what's the quote unquote culture. A couple of other times, I availed myself of the opportunity to network into people in the company that I didn't know and ask them about the culture, and always try to understand that in the context since they left the company, whether they left it on good terms or they were terminated. And so if that was the case, you might be getting a lot of negative feedback. But the bottom line of all of this is, as far as preparation for joining a company is concerned, one of the best things that I can advise is take a very diverse approach and getting as much information as you can, not just about the company and the business and the financials and so forth, but how people think about the company, what their reputation is as a place to work. And you can't get too much of that information, but if you get enough, you'll be able to decide whether this is a good thing and a good fit for you or not.
Yeah. Gary, this reminds me of something, and it has a little aspect of humor here. Several years ago, I had a gentleman that is interviewing with Coors, the beer company in Boulder, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So he's asking me, the way it was, they invited him and the top management to meet at the local bar. So he asked me, Alex, is there anything I should do or should not do? Could you guess what my answer was?
Don't order Heineken.
No.
That's exactly what it is. Don't order Heineken. David, did you hear it?
No, I just.
Yeah, that's exactly what I told him. Don't order Heineken.
Yeah, same beer. Oh.
Yeah. Okay, good. David, thank you.
Terrific, Alex. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So,
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
one thing that's about meeting in person is we get live applause and not just virtual. But Alex.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Yep. That's still your seat, but I took the paper back. That's okay. So, just thinking about Paul's comment as well, or question as well, I'm wondering, maybe even an informational interview would be something that would be able to get you a bit of information about the culture of the company, to get past some of that as well. So for those of you who don't know, an informational interview is not for a specific job. You get to meet with someone either at a company or in the industry who can help you with information about the industry, about the company, or about jobs that may be helpful. And just ask basic questions, about culture, 1 or 2. Informational interviews tend to also be short and quick. 10, 15, 20 minutes. They're not like a long interview. So that may be another option. So Bill suggested that. Thank you very much, Bill. And so, what we also learned here, so Alex, we know you speak 5 languages, but you lived around the country. He also speaks in 4 accents. So I bet you didn't know that either, from living all around the country. U.S. is a very big country that way. You know, I was thinking also when you were talking about some of the cultural differences, I had the pleasure a number of years ago to visit Turkey, travel to the country of Turkey. And when we went into the bazaar to go shopping, we couldn't just say, I want to buy that. We had to sit down with the shop owner and have a cup of tea. If it was a trinket, that wasn't a problem. But if we wanted to look at a rug or we were shopping for some leather items, and at that time, the dollar was strong against the Turkish lira, now it's euro. And so you had to sit and chat, and that was part of the culture. And initially, we thought, we just want to buy this, haggle, buy this, and get out. It was fun. You know, once we immersed ourselves, it was fun. So you certainly can have a bit of enjoyment as you learn about the other cultures, if that's something you're into. But Alex, as always, thank you for being a 27-time supporter of the PSG of Mercer County. We're very appreciative of your continued support and assistance and guidance, so thank you very much. Folks, also want to let you know what will be coming up over the next few weeks at PSG of Mercer County. And as you know, meetings are always free. You never need to pre-register or sign up. You just show up or log on. We do keep our next week's meeting always in the connection info, always in our event calendar. So just check our event calendar. If you're going to meet us virtually, just get the link there. But we are meeting in person. We've got a good crowd today for what it is. But next week, Marty Gilbert will be here. Marty Gilbert is coming virtually from Chicago. Well, he's not really going to be here, but he'll be here virtually. And so he will be back to talk about 30 ways to get unstuck. So if you are someone that's in a little bit of being a little stuck right now, maybe in a little bit of a rut, he's going to talk about 30 ways. You may find one or two of them will be for you. So that's what we'll be doing next week. We'll be meeting here, of course, facilitating here, and Marty will be virtual. And then the following week, the 14th of October, Bill will be here to talk about develop your marketing plan. You knew that, right? Okay, good. Yeah, Bill's running out of the room right now. No, so Bill Pagula will be back. Bill is a member of our executive committee and has a tremendous amount of insight into learning about developing your marketing plan, your approach to promoting yourself and getting found and noticed online and in person. So that's great information as well. Also, if you didn't know, there are lots of other groups in the area, in the vicinity, or even wider geography. One place you can find out about them is the website landingexpert.com, which is Alex Freund's website. Alex, out of the goodness of his heart and passion for what he does, keeps a list of network groups, I would say in the general geography of the Northeast, mostly New Jersey, but there's some in New York and Connecticut and Pennsylvania. I think in Delaware, I think you had. And so check his landing expert list and you can find other groups. One that's a friend of ours is the Breakfast Club of New Jersey. They meet on the second Saturday morning of the month. And Hannah and Isaacs will be presenting for them next Saturday, Essential Employment Law Principles for Workers in Transition, What You Need to Know for 2023. Hannon is a friend of the employee. He's an employment law attorney representing employees, and he'll be giving us a lot of advice that way. Also, our cousin organizations, PSG of Central New Jersey, meets every Monday morning at 10:30. Unless it's a Monday holiday, then they shift usually to Tuesday. Check their website, psgcnj.biz, psgcnj.biz. And our friends in Northern New Jersey at PSG of Morris County, psgmc.org. psgmc.org meets on Wednesdays at 9 o'clock in the morning. So go check out those groups when you can. Of course, you're always welcome here anytime. So once again, thank you to Alex. Thank you for those of you who came to join us in person today. And of course, we appreciate everyone joining us virtually. And I'll simply say until we get to see you next time, bye everybody.